Even county council, I'll speak for Matt. No, I shouldn't, Matt, that's not right. But I know, I appreciate you coming in. There's so many things that we've handled this year, and you've got a lot on your plate for next year that's gonna be coming, some really important projects for the county. And I just wanna say, thank you, and just wish you all a great time, wherever you're going, if you're staying home or going to see relatives.
Thank you. And Mutual, Merry Christmas to all the staff. And thank you for all your assistance. Matters from public. The Planning Commission welcomes participation in commission meetings. This item is limited to matters under the jurisdiction of the commission that are not on the posted agenda, and items which have not already been considered by the commission. No action will be taken. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address any items not on the agenda? Okay, we'll go on to the consent calendar, of which there is nothing. Then we'll go on to our regular calendar, case 6A, case GP 20190005/R 20190006/U 20190009. The owner is Gold West Land Company LLC, and the applicant is Gillian Hayes. Do we have a staff report?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. Sam Vandewater, Planning and Building Services, Planner 2. Before you have, as you mentioned, a general plan amendment, rezone, and use permit request. The general plan and the rezone are a partial request for the parcel. For the general plan, this would be amending the general plan land use designation from remote residential to rural community. The rezone would be from upland residential to rural community. And the use permit is to allow for retail, volatile and non-volatile manufacturing, as well as distribution. The parcel is located about 1.5 miles south of the Laytonville Town Center on the east side of US Highway 101. So it's, let me zoom up over here. The parcel does have some existing structures. The satellite doesn't show it very well, but there's some buildings here as well as one down here. And these are existing structures that would be used for the retail, manufacturing, and distribution of cannabis. The project, with regards to the zoning and general plan designation, the project was found to be consistent with both the existing designations as well as what would be proposed. So, for example, this small acre piece up here, the little green square, is what would be rezoned and general plan amendment into the rural community designations. And the rest of the parcel would remain in upland residential. So the staff found that the project is consistent with both of those designations. There is a brief section about permitted uses and restricting uses, but I'll come back to that because there's been a little bit of a change with regards to the contract rezone. Moving on to the use permit findings, the project was found to be consistent with these findings per Mendocino County Code section 20.196.020. The 4 items include being in conformity with the general plan, which staff found it would be, having adequate utilities, access, and drainage, which again, the building is existing and the parcel does exist along US Highway 101. And it does operate with septic and water. The third item is that the project doesn't constitute a nuisance or a detriment to health, peace, safety, or the comfort of other people residing around the area, and the project was not found to be a nuisance. And lastly, the last use permit finding is that the project is in conformity with the zoning district, which, as mentioned, is it is in conformity with both the rural community and the upland residential district. With regards to environmental protection, the project, an initial study was conducted for the project, and staff has determined that a negative declaration would be appropriate for this project. To go back to referral agencies, there were no major concerns by any of the agencies. The project did go to the Archaeological Commission, who approved the project with the discovery clause attached to the project. Caltrans' only comment was just to make sure that the driveway onto US 101 was up to date, and they have confirmed that that is current. And just to go back to address the contract rezone, when this project was initially applied for, staff worked with the agent Gillian Hayes on the request. And at that time, the applicant had requested limiting the uses of the rural community, because the rural community zoning district does allow for kind of like a jack of all trades zoning. It allows for quite a lot of uses with a use permit. So the agent felt that limiting some of the uses might be beneficial for them. However, with recent conversations with the owner and applicant of the project, we have decided that restricting uses might not be the most appropriate, and therefore staff is recommending that the contract aspect of the rezone be removed from the project, and the full uses entitled to the rural community zoning district be upheld with the project. And with that, staff recommends approval of the general plan amendment, the rezone without a contract, and the use permit.
So that would just strike item 3 there on page 5.
Correct. So
Gotcha.
the limitations of the contract would no longer apply. So that section would be, yeah.
And we will review if the commission agrees with staff's recommendation to remove the contract rezone. We will briefly go over some revisions to the resolution to address that.
Okay, are there any questions for staff?
The letter that was handed in today by Joan Lemos and the neighboring applicant, how did you address those concerns?
Is this the safety concerns?
Yes.
Well, so the project, this use permit would only allow, it provides the ability for them to use this rural community little parcel for distribution, manufacturing, and retail. However, it's the actual business license that they need in order to actually do those uses. And through that business license process, the building division has the opportunity to review the project, and they ensure that the buildings that these uses are going into are adequate. So that involves firewalls, sprinklers, systems, and all those things need to be installed and ready to go before the building division will sign off on the business license.
Right, and I just had a question. So all the existing buildings that are referred to here, do they meet all the setbacks, property line setbacks, or are there inconsistencies?
No, they meet setbacks.
Okay.
And I would like to add that there is currently already operating a processing facility on the subject parcels, because processing is permitted within both the rural community and the upland residential zoning district. So the applicant is currently already operating a processing facility. So this would just really be in addition to that existing use.
And that's permitted?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I have numerous questions. I have a few, actually, I think corrections. Some of them are pretty minor, but some of them I think should be. On page 5 of the first part of the packet, what do we call that? Staff report, okay. On page 5, paragraph B is in boy. The proposed, I think that should be proposed instead of just proposed project. That's just a wordsmithing.
Yes, we agree.
Okay, and down at the bottom of that page, under item number 4, An initial study for the proposed project was, I don't think it was competed, I think it was completed. And just out of curiosity, we did not have those maps in our packet, did we, that you have up on the board? The only one I saw was maybe the one on the bottom right.
Not this one. This is, I believe, the site plan that we have included with the packet. This is a separate map that I
Okay.
have.
Thank you. Yeah, it would have been, yeah. Then going on to the resolution. There's some corrections there. On the first page of the resolution at the bottom, number 2, I don't think that paragraph is complete unless something's missing on my packet.
I think if we remove the word "and" out of that, it would just be stating the project satisfies the use permit required findings per the Mendocino County Code, section 20.196020, as noted in the staff report.
Period. Okay, thank you. And then on the next page, after item number 4, we're beginning with, be it therefore, be it further resolved that the Planning Commission recommends the Board of Supervisors adopt the negative declaration which has, instead of have, been completed. I think that's a single. I could be wrong on that, but.
No, we agree.
Okay. And then going on with that, reviewed and considered together with the comments received during the public review process and the evidence in the record is in compliance?
Staff agrees.
Okay, thank you. And then there were some numerous things in the, okay. Page 2 of the initial study negative declaration. In the middle paragraph where it says no impact, I think that should be A through D instead of C. All those are no impact, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Okay. And then on page 4, let's see. Number A shows less than significant down in the bottom, the paragraph, but in the chart it shows no impact, so I wasn't sure which that was supposed to be.
Less than significant, so the box needs to be
Change.
corrected. Thank you.
Okay. And then on page 7, oh, okay, A and B show as less than significant, but in the paragraph it shows no impact. I'm sorry, that's page 6.
The header on A and B should be corrected to say less than significant.
Thank you. I should have those. That's it. Thank you. Yes, there. Yes.
I had one more question. On page, there's not a page number, but it's number 13 of Exhibit A. I just, as far as being able to monitor that they're keeping the business license and meeting, how is that being processed? I see that it says the Department of Planning and Building Services prior to the operation of the business, but how do we is there like an annual review of these licenses?
Vandy Planning and Building. There isn't an annual review by Planning and Building, but they do have to go to the tax collector every year.
Okay. And then that is part of the oversight, more or less.
Correct, and then also as well as, people who, our code enforcement is very complaint driven, so if people do have issues, they would really go through our code enforcement
Right.
division, who
No.
would then work with me to address the issue.
Right. Thank you.
So going on with that same paragraph, so then after the taxes are paid, I guess the license annually goes back to planning and building? Or is it just at the beginning?
Julia Ackerkrog, the license, we only review it at one time. If there's no changes to the proposal or the activity that they're conducting, we do not conduct a new review every year. They just go through and renew that license with the tax collector's office for a small fee.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, then we'll hear from the applicant or the agent. Please come to the podium and state your name.
Joshua Keats from Laytonville. Hello, Planning Commission and County staff. Thank you for your time today. My name is Joshua Keats. I'm the founder of Henry's Original. We're the largest distributor of Mendocino County branded cannabis in the world. We work with over 50 licensed farms in Mendocino to take their product to market to over 250 dispensaries throughout the state under the Henry's label. Unlike most of our competitors, all of our retail ready goods are clearly and boldly branded for their Mendocino County origin. We are one of the largest employers in northern Mendocino with over 100 jobs, 60 of which are at the facility on the parcel in question today. We hope to continue to increase our headcount here as we grow our business, and the rezoning of this parcel to the rural community designation is pivotal to our ability to do so. Our goal with this rezone is twofold. First, to complete our operational build-out by allowing for extraction facilities, and second, to allow for retail and food service to create an Anderson Valley-like winery experience where Highway 101 travelers can become brand advocates of both Henry's and Mendocino County cannabis by experiencing the farm with a tasting room. We've invested over $3 million to date in this parcel during the first phase of construction, utilizing local contractors and companies such as Dave Farrell, Bob Fortner, Mike Lucetti, Steve Anderson, Bud Garman, Redwood Heating and Cooling, Northern Aggregates, Long Valley Lumber, Mendo Mill, Dripworks, Weathertop Nursery, and many others. We've kept our money local, and we hope to invest millions more into the Mendocino County economy during our second phase of construction, as we work to finish operational build-out and begin to construct facilities that create a customer experience truly representative of Mendocino County's cannabis heritage. In addition to the request put forward today, and after further consideration internally, we would like to ask to eliminate the contract portion of the rezone and that all uses applicable to rural community zoning be restored. There is limited suitable land in the 101 corridor in the Laytonville area, and we believe it would be a benefit to the community as a whole to allow this parcel to function as a rural community center. We appreciate your consideration.
Questions for the applicant?
Josh, just you introduced yourself and the company in which you're working for, and actually, it sounded like there were two different companies. There's Henry's, and then there's Mendocino County Cannabis. Can you explain that a little bit?
Gold West Land Co. is the owner of the parcel. We lease from them. Henry's Original Heritage Holding of California.
What was it? Henry's what now?
Henry's Original is the DBA of Heritage Holding of California
Okay.
Incorporated, which is the parent company.
Okay, and then I heard you mention Mendocino County Cannabis. What? I thought you said something about Mendocino County or Mendocino Cannabis.
We are a Mendocino County consumer packaged good company. We create consumer packaged goods that retail at dispensaries throughout the state, and 100% of our flower comes from Mendocino County licensed farms. We're the largest distributor of branded Mendocino County cannabis.
But is that a separate company name?
No, that is Henry's Original.
So everything that you process, I mean, you said you have 250 outlets?
We're sold in about 250 dispensaries throughout the state of California.
And is that all Mendocino County flowers?
100%.
Okay.
We're
I
the
gotta wrap my arms around
largest
this.
distributor of Mendocino
Okay.
County cannabis, and the only top 20 brand that 100% of our flower comes from Mendocino County.
And just for clarification, but Gold West Land Company is actually the property owner?
Yes,
Okay. But you're
I'm their agent.
you're their agent and you're renting from them?
We're the lease, yes, the
Okay,
leasee.
thank you.
And just out of curiosity, that sounds like a lot of cannabis. How much is indoor and how much is outdoor percentage-wise, just for curiosity?
100% is sun-grown.
100% is sun-grown, no indoor. Wow.
Right on.
I haven't seen it from Highway 101. Where are you hiding it? Up in the, I guess up in the 40 acres.
We're right on the south end of the 101 Ranch, kind of right across from the airport, if you're familiar. Happy to give anybody a tour, just get in touch.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could address the board. I just want to say something about Josh. Brent Schultz, Planning and Building Service Director. He was pivotal working with the Cannabis Economic Development Ad Hoc. And we did come to a economic development strategy for the county. He was pivotal. A bunch of people were in there, but he showed up at the meetings, and Sarah, and I just wanted to tell him I appreciate there was a lot of work done on that, and we actually have a strategy, and we're trying to implement that strategy, and Josh was a big part of that, and I appreciated all his work on it.
Josh, just so I'm clear where I saw the map, but I'm not real familiar with Laytonville. There was a barn there for years. Is that the property there? I guess it's on the east side of the Highway 101. Is that where and then there's several greenhouses there also. Now, is that considered outdoor?
So the greenhouses on that facility are a nursery. That's really the foundation. We're able to propagate a large amount of clones, which we can give to contract farmers, and then we'll buy back their flower and process it in the steel building, as I'm assuming what you're referring to as the barn.
Yeah.
That's our processing
Well, now, this is
center
a
there.
wooden building.
That's the neighboring parcel, which is also zoned rural community, I believe. I'm sure Vandy can attest to that.
Okay, so that's not your property where the wooden barn is?
That's not the wooden barn, but the greenhouses are slightly south. Those are our
Correct.
greenhouses. That's
Yeah.
our nursery facility. So that's not where the cannabis is cultivated. That is
Okay.
where the
I didn't know if that
clones are propagated.
if the wooden barn was included on your property.
It's not.
Anyway, okay.
But you mentioned that you actually buy product from a lot of other growers, right? In that
Correct.
sense, okay.
We work with currently, I think we're at about 50 farms, Mendocino County licensed farms.
So as a learning process, another question, of course, around Mendocino County, I live in Potter Valley, so there are a lot of greenhouses out there. Just out of curiosity, are those all nurseries then, or would those be indoor grows and nurseries, or do you know?
So I'm assuming you're referring to hoop houses, which I would
Yes.
think of as differently than greenhouses. Greenhouses generally have a climate control system. In addition, they will have supplemental lighting. Greenhouse, the way that cannabis is graded in the market is generally outdoor, hoop house, greenhouse, and then indoor. So there's kind of 4 tiers. Most of our product is hoop house grown. You get a superior product when you grow under a layer of plastic. The force of the sunlight, in addition to other inclement weather, will degrade the crop and reduce the terpenes, which are the smell. In addition, other cannabinoids, and brown it some. If you have a layer of plastic, it will refract the light and increase the quality of your product. It will fetch a higher price on the market.
So the hoop house is considered an outdoor grow?
Yes, it is considered outdoor, although it is classified in the market as a slightly superior tier to simply a plant in a field.
Thank you.
Well, since we're asking curiosity questions, are these mostly organic plants? Do you get certified or anything like that?
So the regulations are incredibly stringent as far as what we can use. We are more than organic, and that is actually as dictated by the CDFA, not even by choice. Although we are third-party certified, all of our flour is clean green certified. It's a program by a USDA certifier, organic certifier. Of course, that's a federal program, so we're not able to participate. But this gentleman, Chris Van Hook, created his own program called Clean Green, and he puts cannabis into the same rigorous testing as all other USDA commodities, and so we are annually certified as
And
Clean
is that
Green.
a marketing advantage
It
to your
is,
company?
yeah.
Right on. I like organic and not with consuming a lot of energy. That's my thing.
Yeah, us too.
Josh, I had a question about the extraction. When you do get that facility up and going, if I heard right, it'll be both volatile and non-volatile?
Yeah, I am not an extraction expert, so I'll give you kind of my understanding of the way that You do an initial pass, can be done with non-volatile. It's considered, I believe ethanol is considered non-volatile. That you'll create what's called crude, which is a darker oil substance, which just has it's not purified enough to take to market. To be able to take the crude and further distill it to a marketable product, the standard is to use a butane propane mixture, which will pull all the impurities out and leave you with a higher quality product. There are ways to do this with carbon dioxide, but it's expensive and it produces an inferior product, for the largest part being that the terpenes are not retained in the same way that they're retained during hydrocarbon extraction.
Okay, and so with that hydrocarbon extraction, that's where the hazardous materials plan comes in, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then, because we're all trying to wrap our brains around extraction facilities and the safety protocols in place, can you just share with us what you know about the requirements?
They are incredibly stringent. We have some amazing extraction facilities in the county already. I'd say Leaf Holdings and Willits. Their facility is incredible. They have, all the bells and whistles, and I believe this is mandatory, such as there's mechanisms such that if any amount of a hydrocarbon is detected in the air, the system will immediately shut off, and there's purging. All of the air will be purged to prevent an explosion. Additionally, the facilities are constructed in such a way that they would be able to contain any sort of disaster. Like I said, I'm certainly not an expert, and all of this, of course, will be professionally engineered to, state and county standards.
Do you picture this facility much like a tasting room, a wine tasting room?
Our goal is to create a Anderson Valley-like winery experience where 101 travelers can come in and see the farm, experience the farm, and be able to purchase product and really to create brand advocates out of them, both for Henry's Original as well as for Mendocino County cannabis as a whole.
Okay.
We're learning. I think I heard somewhere, it could have been in Vandy's presentation, that there will be fire sprinkling in the building? Is that
I do believe that that will be a requirement for extraction.
Okay,
I think it's a requirement for anything, for any commercial.
okay. And then I think you mentioned something about eliminating the contract rezone.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you address that a little bit? I'm sure it's in our packet somewhere, but.
Yeah, we've spent a very considerable amount of money on this parcel as well as on the rezone itself. And we would ask that we would be afforded the same rights as any other business looking to have potential of future uses without having to go through additional costly planning. Of course, it's not that all of these uses would be immediately awarded. It's that we would have the opportunity through the future use permit application to participate in what is entitled to other rural community settings. There is a very limited amount of suitable land in Long Valley. The 101 Ranch takes up most of that. That's pretty much dedicated to ag. There's a Laytonville Town Center, and there isn't much else. This is a very appropriate parcel, we believe, and we hope you guys would agree with us. We have the egress onto the 101 with good visibility there. So we're not looking to, open a laundromat tomorrow, but we feel that, for future uses, for the money we have invested, it would be reasonable and beneficial to the community as a whole to allow the conversation to continue with future use permits applications.
If I may, through the chair. The rural community zoning district does allow quite a lot of uses, but a majority of those uses they require a use permit. If I recall correctly, I think most of the permitted uses without any additional permitting are really just agricultural uses like row and field crop, horticulture, tree crops, items such as that. But for most of the commercial activities that rural community allows, it does require a use permit be obtained first.
Are you asking that to waive the requirement for a use permit?
No, ma'am.
Vandy plan.
Yeah.
So this is, again, what had happened originally is staff had sat down with the applicant's agents, and the agents had recommended restricting some of those uses that are permitted in rural community. And so what we're requesting is just that those restrictions go away and all the uses normally permitted within rural community as they are is retained.
So basically just stating that there'd be no limitation on what uses they could establish. There's no request to waive the requirement to get a use permit or anything like that for uses that would typically require a use permit. It's just essentially allowing it to go straight to the rural community zoning district, subject to all the limitations already contained within that zoning district. And staff is supportive of that request going forward. And we do have an alternate resolution if the commission so wishes to follow staff's recommendation on that.
Okay, so eliminating the contract rezone, is that changing anything in our packet? I'm sorry, I'm a little confused on that part.
It'll primarily change the resolution that
Okay.
is making your recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. But when staff conducted their analysis, they actually evaluated under CEQA with the lens of looking at the entirety of the appropriateness of the rural community zoning district. It had been, as Vandy had said, that the applicant had initially requested limitation of some of the allowable uses, but since that time has come back and staff is supportive of that request to allow all allowable uses.
Okay, so you're both on the same page? Is that what I'm understanding? Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant?
I just had one. I see 2 letters before us this morning, which I haven't had time to read in their entirety, but I also see an 18-page packet. Was this submitted by you, Josh, or was this from staff? Do we know?
Bandy, that was submitted by, I believe, Charles Seiler. It's recommended, like, fire prevention regulations that, I believe in his letter, he's requesting that these be adopted as part of the project.
So that's part of the cover letter then, that packet is. Okay, that was a little
Okay.
unclear to me as well.
Thank you, Vandy.
And Allison, I think this was when I was referring to it earlier, the questions about the planning, our planning team suggested this gets captured at the building permit stage and not in the regs here, being attached to the regs here. That's what I understand. Is that correct?
Vandy Plan Building, if you're referring to, like, the fire sprinkler systems and the firewalls, then yes, that's what I was referring to.
Julia Ackerkrog, the building division has some pretty stringent requirements. I mean, there's the California Building Code that any sort of activity, they have to comply with whatever designation is assigned to them in terms of if they're doing hazardous materials, using the volatile chemicals in there. There are stringent requirements from California Building Code that would have to be followed.
So the items in this packet would be addressed at that time. Is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, Brent Schultz, Planning and Building Service Director. All these conditions, typically, it's just like what Vandy said, when the business license comes in, we don't issue that business license till we turn right over to Michael Oliphant and go, has everything been complied with? We want to see a C&O has been issued and all these conditions are checked off. We don't allow them to occupy the building. We don't issue a business license till everything is complied with.
Additionally, CAL FIRE is involved in any sort of sign-off that we have on building permits. So it's important to note that as well, that the local fire districts are included in any sort of building permit sign-off.
They are or are not?
They are.
They are, so CAL FIRE and the local fire district.
If they're in, the local fire district has to have a paid fire chief essentially to review the actual plans, but CAL FIRE does provide a clearance on any sort of application and a final clearance prior to occupying the building in any way.
Okay, great, thank you. And can anybody clarify where this comes from? It's titled down at the bottom, Cannabis Cultivation Production Requirements for Business. Is this state? Is this local?
I think it was Colorado, wasn't it?
This
Out
is
of Colorado?
Springs,
That was,
yeah.
if you're referring to that big packet that was submitted as public comment, I believe that's the Los Angeles Fire Department's standards.
Thank you. Okay.
So does this get passed to Michael Oliphant's department building?
It's different. The Los Angeles Fire Department requirements, I'm not sure if they duplicate what is in
Right.
state, the building code requirements, but, I would hope that we can trust that our California building code does address health and safety concerns with any sort of activity going on.
But Brent Schultz again, Planning and Building Service Director, don't look at LA County or those other cities. That can be, they can put other conditions on it because it's an urbanized setting.
Yes,
We're in a
I
rural
understand.
setting. We have maybe more stringent standards in our process, but it's our chief building official and our chief planner work together with this process. Sometimes we pull the county council, and if there's some kind of recorded document needed, we don't allow anything to get a business license or C of O till everything is done. And I am a stickler on that, and you can ask any of the staff. You can ask Josh. We had a discussion on this when I first came here. We will not, allow you to occupy the building till all these conditions are complied with. And we don't have a problem getting people to comply. They do it. They want their C of O, and we want them to be in business. We want them to pay their cannabis business tax, and so.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Members of the public, is there anyone from the public who wishes to address this item?
Yeah, I'm the guy who wrote the letter, Charles Sealer.
Please state your name in the microphone.
Charles Sealer,
thank you.
Sichler. I got the notice down in Coronado where we've been living and drove up here because if you look on the property, there's a house right across the street on the west side, and we own the property. It's a 1 acre site. It's leased to our daughter and son-in-law, lease purchased our daughter and son-in-law. And had some concerns. I was reviewing the EIR in another career. I spent over 40 years working in construction, including fire prevention and fire suppression. Most recently, I've been a contract construction manager working on highly volatile stuff, including a hydrogen generating fueling station. But the reason that I've did a nice large print, but my son-in-law's printer doesn't work, so had my comments all set up to go. We are not opposed to the project in any way, shape, or form. I just want to make absolutely certain that the fire conditions are taken care of, public safety conditions are taken care of, not only for us, but for the surrounding community. I'm doing research on the issues. After I received the notice, I found out that there's a whole lot of methods of processing cannabis. As Josh mentioned, there's a highly volatile using propane butane, and the other doesn't work quite so well. My primary concern was that the public safety issues be taken care of. Now, I'm hearing here, I reviewed the EIR. I used to do this for the city of Pomona, California. I would dig negative decks for several years, and noticed that they said minimal fire hazard, and to me that was a flag. The package was extremely complete on all the known issues of the site, but very little about the actual processing, what was actually going to take place. And I contacted the CAL FIRE, I contacted the Laytonville Fire Department, asked them what they knew about it, and they kind of gave me this, "What are you talking about?" look, which is kind of frustrating, which is why I'm up here, why I drove 700 miles to be up here to address you. My primary concern is that the agencies are included in the process as far as approving the building and the fire protection issues. And I dug up Regulation 30, LA County Fire Code, not to be adopted, but to something to show what the complexity of what can occur with cannabis issues and cannabis processing. They base this upon the Colorado Springs model, which is about to become NFPA Chapter 38, which is the national standard for fire protection. And it was pretty complete. I actually just requesting that before you approve the neg deck, that you make sure that the fire department, fire agencies are fully on board. And I had submitted to the letters that you have, and I think you see the bottom, I submitted to the Laytonville Water Agency, the Laytonville Fire Department, and CAL FIRE. And all of them said, wow, I didn't know about this, which kind of blew my mind. I honestly felt that it would have been, they would have said, oh yeah, we've looked at this, we know that, to save me a 1,500-mile trip. But the answers I got brought me up here. That also, and I understand that the wells, the existing wells are there and are functional. The well across the street in our little house, when there's heavy pumping across the street, well doesn't work. It doesn't happen frequently, but it's happened several times that they turned the switch on, didn't get any water because the drawdown was significant. And that was the one thing I would request, that you have an evaluation as far as the amount of water being used and the effect on the other people in the area. Because it does have a significant effect. We got daughter, grandson, and husband, and 5 grandkids up there, and they use water, and they occasionally they're doing some crops and such. So they moved up here to have the rural atmosphere, and they've got it. Anybody have any questions of me, I'll be happy to answer them.
I have a question. Do you know how deep that your well is?
I believe it's 85 feet, but I wanted to stop by Willett's Pump and check with the guy that drilled it and see what it was. I had that information at one point in time, and it went, it's with a real estate packet that my wife was putting together, and she didn't bother to share it with me.
Okay, thank you.
I know we had only 5 feet of drawdown and pumping at the maximum rate, which I think was 15 gallons a minute, which isn't too bad.
Madam Chair, I would just like to note, for the benefit of Mr. Seiler, you can also visit our Division of Environmental Health and see if they have records related to your well on the property, and
Yeah.
they should have the depth as well.
Yeah, that also, Department of Water Resources should have full records on it. In fact, I've asked my son-in-law to try and chase that information up, and he didn't do so. What else can I say?
As far as the issues and the safety of the facility, I'm not sure how much we can offer on that, in that I think when the use permit is applied for, it'll be planning and building that actually approve that.
I'm certain it
and
will.
with the requirements.
I'm glad to hear that the CAL FIRE and Laytonville Fire are involved in the process. However, down in Southern California, the fire agencies sign off on the neg decks as well, which is, I asked them about it, and I got the deer in the headlights comments, if you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
And that was my concern. It's why I'm up here. I have no problem
Well,
with the
rural
project,
fire
although some
departments are
people are
quite
saying-
different than urban ones.
Say again?
Rural fire departments are quite a bit different than urban ones. They're mostly volunteers.
Oh,
You know, who answers the phone may not be the chief.
Yeah, I went over and talked to Sue. I've had several conversations with her, and she was happy with what I submitted. So, no, and I understand that. However, the fire prevention issues in a building are very similar. Maybe, and I realize that there is no public water supply out there. You have to rely totally on well water, and that would, for a sprinkler system, you'd have to have on-site storage and fire pumps with backups. And that's what CAL FIRE told me, so. I've been dealing with Anthony Mercuso, the captain in fire prevention, is the Willits branch. So I've been dealing with CAL FIRE. So anyway, I thank you for your consideration. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have issues that, as somebody said, build a bomb factory across the street, because if it's not properly handled, it can be highly explosive. And with the fire issues we've had up here in the past, it could become significant. Thank you very much.
I just, while you're still up there, I just wanted to address the referral agencies. The packets were sent to CAL FIRE Prevention, CAL FIRE Resource Management, Long Valley Fire District. As Commissioner Holcamp mentioned, Long Valley's, I don't know if it's all volunteer or not, but CAL FIRE, they certainly have enough staff where they should have responded if there were concerns, and there was no response from them.
The reason that there was no response, there was nothing indicated in the EIR about the depth of processing. I said in my letter, there's a great deal of general known information about the site, but very little about the actual processing issues. And the fact that volatile and non-volatile, if you aren't familiar with the process, I'm sure Josh will tell you that, if you're not familiar with the process, you don't have a clue what they're talking about. I mean, I was explaining to you that it's a new industry.
Perhaps CAL FIRE should get educated.
On that.
Go ahead.
He's still speaking.
Anything
Oh,
else?
sorry. Go ahead.
Not him,
Okay.
for planning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
If I may, through the chair.
Yes, sir.
Vandy, Planning and Building. So as you noted, the project did get sent to the Laytonville, the Long Valley Fire District, and both of CAL FIRE's departments. Something, if the commission is open to the idea, with our subdivisions, we do have conditions that the projects get reviewed by CAL FIRE and/or the local fire department before the project is finalized. And that's something we do with, say, our subdivisions. So that is a condition we could add to this project, that before the use permit is final, that CAL FIRE come and review the site and provide their sign off before we issue anything.
I would support that addition, especially because our local and volunteer fire departments are in a collective learning process about how to incorporate these extraction facilities into their service areas. And I can tell you that I was contacted by Long Valley Fire Department Chief, and she did not receive the packet on this back in July. She normally does, but for some reason this one was not received. So I would request, if it's possible, to have staff just to reach out for a friendly conversation about how the local fire department will be involved in this process, whether it's now or down the road when it comes to building permit time. I think that would be beneficial, again, just because we're all in this learning process of how does this work with extraction facilities.
Brent Schultz, if I could answer that, we do an extensive process of outreach to all the fire districts. It's quite a process. I'm used to going to one fire marshal and getting these things signed off. So we take, you look at my definition of my position, what does it talk about first? It talks about health and safety. Safety is really important to me. I do not want to be permitting anything that could explode or cause a fire. I appreciate Mr. I think it's Seller. I appreciate his comment. I feel bad for him coming 700 miles because this is about a rezone and a general plan amendment. It's not about, but it's not about, he's not submitting this does not have an application for a volatile extraction in it, does it?
It does.
It does?
Yes.
Okay, but it's going to be reviewed by our building. He has to submit engineer drawings. He has to meet our fire codes. Everything gets routed to the fire departments, or it's Laytonville, they would get it. CAL FIRE would be everybody who's required in our state California building code and our fire codes. We have to comply with those codes. We can't just willy-nilly do what we want. And we're not gonna do we're gonna make sure that Josh meets that standard. And we're not gonna issue a building permit till those drawings meet it. I know Mike Oliphant, and I think it was a bit like we're just gonna cause an explosion. That is not what happens there in the plan check process. No, I mean, I feel like he did kind of indicate like we should have done more work on it. We did do work on it. It will be submitted, but we don't have those drawings yet, so we can't analyze it. But nor would it come to you. It would be conditioned to go through our building official and through the building plan check process. So that's all I wanted to bring up.
And I'll just add to that too. Thank you for that. I have total confidence in the building permit process, and I just want to request that some kind of outreach happen to Long Valley Fire, because for whatever reason, whether it was a mail glitch or someone was on vacation on either end, who knows, they didn't get the packet, and so they're kind of like, ooh, what's going on? And so just like, I think one phone call or one email would do a world of good.
Staff can handle that. What we'll do is actually we can reach out with a phone call and follow up and send a copy of the application package and the materials here. And just to remember that this right now is a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. So if the fire district comes back with additional concerns, there still is an opportunity to address those concerns prior to final action being taken on the project.
I just want, I'll like, maybe you can talk in a second, but I did also want to ask about the drawdown problem in the wells.
So if I may, the cultivation activities is not what is in front of us today. These are existing structures, and we have no requirements within our ordinance related to drawdown of wells as it relates to cannabis facilities and or doing a general plan amendment and rezone. So the cultivation is not what is in front of us here today.
However, I will disclose that I toured the facility. Josh gave me a tour of the facility, and I was happy to see that Fish and Wildlife required them to establish a new pond which provides some, if not all, of the water for the cultivation facilities.
Perhaps the applicant can address that? And please state your name again, please.
Joshua Keats. Thank you for allowing me to speak again. I appreciate the issues, obviously. That is not one that anybody wants. That is not us. Our irrigation water is 100% from rain catchment pond located. You can see it at the top of the map there on the left-hand side. That's required by CDFW. We do not use the well. The well is only used for domestic purposes at the processing building, flushing toilets, washing hands. In addition, it is not a high draw well. It is, I believe, it hit under 2 gallons a minute. So it's certainly, we would not even have the capability to draw down somebody else's well at that. You're welcome to please look at the well log. I guarantee it's under 2. I had it drilled about 2 or 3 years ago by Matt Morrison.
And how deep is the well?
I couldn't tell you, but I believe it is, I want to say 150 feet at least.
Oh,
but
okay.
We, of course, can refer to the well log. I do know that the draw itself could not physically draw somebody, not to mention we only use it to fill 2 3,000 gallon tanks that then pump into the processing center where we have 2 toilets and 3 sinks.
Thank you. I think I need a tour. I'm going to set that up with you.
Anytime, please.
I'm curious.
I will say I'm familiar with the construction of a commercial building now in Mendocino County, and the last thing I had to do was have the Fort Bragg Volunteer Fire Department come to the building before I could open it. So I have confidence in the Planning and Building Department when it comes to this issue.
I just wanted to, staff, when, and I see this all the time when the referral agencies, and they come back, no response, no response, no response. And my concern sometimes is whether people are, other agencies are overworked, understaffed. But over the years, I have seen, and this is about over 30 years of doing processes, that we used to have all responses from most of these agencies, and less responses are happening. And my concern, is there anything that can be done about that, in the sense, because I think staff puts out all this information and other agencies don't do their due diligence. And it's just a concern.
Thank you for your concern. And so Julia Ackerkrog, Chief Planner, I think one thing that I just always want to make sure that the commission is aware of, we have a standard condition that requires, this is always condition number 4, which says that this permit shall be subject to the securing of all necessary permits for the proposed development from county, state, and federal agencies having jurisdiction. That is a catch-all that even if they don't respond, they still are subject to obtaining all necessary permits. I do understand your concern, and I can't speak for all the agencies. I know for some it is a workload issue, and/or with some of our volunteer fire departments, it's that they're volunteer and can't keep up with the volume of what's sent to them necessarily. And also remembering that they don't get necessarily, any sort of compensation or funding to support this service that they provide back to the county. So we do always include that condition just to ensure that any requirements are captured. But I certainly acknowledge your concern.
If I may, through the chair, I just would also like to add that from my own experience reaching out to agencies, turnover seems to be a bit of a problem where one person will get used to our referral process and then they leave and the new person has no idea what referrals are. So that's another issue.
One issue I've heard is our staff in building saying, no, you're supposed to review this, and they'll say, no, we don't want to. And we're gonna, no, it's a commercial business. You have to do the fire code analysis. And a lot of times, Michael Oliphant, on some of these, will have to get in there and help them through the fire code analysis. So it's really a dilemma. I wish I had one fire marshal that represented them all that was sitting in our offices that was upholding the fire codes, because it does get difficult for us.
Then you'd have to pay them.
Yeah, then we'd have to pay them. Yeah. Well, you could adopt a fee to charge, we could pay for them. But I know that's, can be difficult.
And I find that, and I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, because as you've known for the past, how many years? 7, 11? 11 years I've been on the commission. The Department of Fish and Wildlife, no response normally. And how much are they charging the applicant now? $2,404.75. Ridiculous. I've said my piece numerous times, and I know there's nothing we can do about it, but I sure wish it could be addressed by, I know I need to talk to my legislature, but anyway. Sorry, on my bandbox again. Any other members of the public who wish to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Discussion among commission members. I think one thing we needed to address, I think you had mentioned you wanted to add a condition. Personally, I'm against adding the condition at this point, because I think the applicant's already been through probably enough, but I think it's something we should address in the future. I mean, like maybe add a condition going forward.
If I may, through the chair, I believe that Commissioner Purnell was satisfied that staff would reach out to the fire district, Long Valley Fire District, to have a discussion with them, and then we can incorporate any recommendations at the time of the Board of Supervisors hearing, remembering that this is a recommendation you're providing today, not final action on the project.
Does that address your
Yeah.
concerns, Allison? Okay,
It
thank you.
does.
Yeah, maybe that could just be in our minutes.
Well, I'll jump in. As far as location of cannabis facilities in Long Valley, I feel confident that this is a good location. This is an area that's in the Valley Bottomlands. It is immediately adjacent to Highway 101. Those are all beneficial things for not only for business and efficiency, but also just for minimizing impact in general. Laytonville is a challenging community for locating cannabis facilities because our town center is so compact and there are so many of the sensitive receptor sites that it actually, by the time you draw the circles around each of them, there's basically nothing left for cannabis facilities. So it really is something that needs to be located on the fringe of the community, and I think especially given that the site the parcel immediately north of this one is already zoned RC. It's just a very compelling case for the rezone and general plan amendment, and I have no objection to the use permit.
Any other comments from staff? Or, sorry, from the planning commission? Then I'm looking for a motion.
And Madam Chair, if I just may remind you, on the table here today is also the discussion about staff's recommendation to remove the contract rezone aspect, and we do have a revised resolution that we can present if the commission is in agreement with that and walk you through that.
Thank you.
So, and I have, Vandy has pulled that up on the screen, so if you don't mind, we might walk you through that, and then you can make your final motions and decision. Do you mind going through that, or do you want me to go through it? I can go through it. Okay. So the resolution up here, you see we're just striking in the top header the reference to a contract rezone combining district. Then in the first whereas clause, striking the language that says contract rezone and just leaving it saying rezone. And then in the general plan and zoning findings, under the first now therefore be it resolved, it would remove the reference to contract. And we also included the change that was suggested by Chair Ogle in terms of removing the and. We would then delete the third finding, and then the fourth finding would be renumbered to number 3. And then in the next be it further resolved clause, we've made the 2 corrections as noted by Chair Ogle. And then in Exhibit A, the approved project description would be revised to strike the language related to the contract rezone combining district.
Do we still need the word "and" at the end of item 2?
I think that was
That's been
crossed
struck.
out.
We do. We still keep that one because you have one more finding.
Okay.
If you would prefer, we could just make it a period if you like.
I don't really care. It's just, the other ones don't have
Right.
"and."
Oh, so
I
we'll
agree.
just go ahead
Strike
and
it.
revise that to make that a period, if you don't mind making that change right there, Vandy.
That's-
Yeah, I think that's what we
I
talked
agree,
about.
yeah.
There you are. Thank you.
I thought that was the "and" we were talking about. Yeah.
Sorry. And then, if I may, with the permission of the chair, then staff's recommendation would be revised to state that by resolution, recommend the Board of Supervisors adopt a negative declaration and grant a general plan amendment from remote residential to rural community, a rezone from upland residential to rural community, to a portion of the subject parcel, and a minor use permit for cannabis retail, volatile and non-volatile manufacturing and distribution within said portion.
Ready? Okay. I'd like to make the recommended motion.
I'll second.
If, as revised.
As revised. Thank you.
And we have a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Wiedemann?
Yes?
Commissioner Jacobson?
Yes.
Commissioner Purnell?
Yes.
And Commissioner Holtkamp?
Yes.
And Chair Ogle?
Yes, thank you. Okay, our next item is, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners.
Josh, do you happen to have a business card? Great, thank you. I would like to follow up.
That's what I was going to ask you for, Josh.
I want one too. I want to come and see it.
We could just, if, Josh, you wouldn't mind just giving one to the clerk, and then we can distribute it as well.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
We can't do it
Toured
together.
Flocana.
Excuse me?
Yeah, and Flocana too, yeah. Have you toured it?
I have, but no, it was afterward, but I found her card and I called up with it. That's okay.
Okay, item 7, matters from staff.
We have no items to present, but we're certainly available for questions. And I will just add, we are still, I have a running list of the items that we do need to follow up with you on, and one of which is presenting the current drafts of the cannabis ordinances. And I will say, because we've had still some changes going through that have recently become effective, we will likely begin bringing copies of those to you at one of our January meetings. And then secondarily, one of the other items that we still need to follow up with the commission on was about recommendations in terms of staff priorities and objectives for the 2020 to 2021 fiscal year for planning and building, and how those would be presented to the Board of Supervisors.
If we have issues that we want to bring forward for that, looking at 2020, 2021, Do we talk to you two?
You certainly may talk with both Brent and myself, and also we will usually will go in about March or April to initiate the conversations about priorities and objectives. And as I said, we will be coming back to the commission here with a recommendation on how you would be able to provide those sorts of recommendations to the Board of Supervisor for what our priorities are for the next fiscal year.
And I just, I'm trying to kind of plan ahead here. Do you know what our next meeting dates look like? And I guess at this point, it's in 2020.
I'm actually going to look to our commission services supervisor to see if he can help me to point these out.
Meeting on the 2nd.
Okay, thank you.
There is a scheduled item for the 16th, but it hasn't been finalized.
And I'm sorry if I can correct what I heard. No meeting on January 2nd, but one is scheduled for the 16th of January. And we will send out a revised calendar to all commissioners too, so you have that.
And I think it's,
Nicely done. Don't plan one on the 2nd.
yes.
Good plan.
And I'm sure it's too soon to look into February or okay, thank you. Great, thank you very much. Where are we?
Matters of commission.
Matters of, thank you. Matters of commission, from the commission.
I have a matter. I would like, since we're in winter calendar, I would like to start the meeting at 10 a.m. because of road conditions in the morning.
I thought we discussed doing that last year.
And I think we need some kind of something to do it.
The days are starting to get longer after
December 21st.
Although
December
it has
21st.
been traditional for us to start a little later in January
Yeah.
and February sometimes. If
It's
the
hard
weather-
doing 253 and
It's easy for us
128.
in town, but hard for the outliers.
Yeah.
It's icy and foggy and.
so I don't,
But what has to happen, and what has happened is a hitch here, is sometimes the item itself doesn't get noticed for 10 o'clock, I think. I'm not sure about that.
Thank you. I was just double checking with our commission services supervisor that we have not yet noticed the item for January 16th. Therefore, we would be able to make that change for the January meetings. And then if you wanted to give us which months you would like to have the meetings start at 10 a.m., and there'd be a motion by the or direction from, thank you, council, direction to change the meeting time to 10 a.m. for those months, then we can certainly do that.
for me, it would be December, now but from my point of view, it's December, January, and February that are the more critical of dark time of the year and icy roads.
Agreed.
So those
For
3
me.
months are more critical.
Deputy County Council Matthew Godrowski, if there's a consensus from the commission that for January and February, we notice those for 10 o'clock, we can give direction to staff to do that.
And all we have to do is remember so that we don't all show up here, because that's what usually happens.
No donuts?
Greg and I have been known to have quite a bit of coffee.
So, in the future then, such as for 20, like December 20, I guess we should also make it for that. I mean, do we need a motion to change those 3 months to 10 o'clock?
Deputy
In the
County
future?
Council, so the bylaws, they simply say that the meetings start at 9 o'clock unless otherwise noticed. So on an annual basis, we could do, just a check-in in October, November on this to do that. Or if we wanted to make it more specific, I think we have to amend the bylaws to be clear to provide in these 3 months, we're going to start at 10 o'clock. But for that, it just means doing something where we know that we have direction to go ahead and do that on an
What
annual
does it
basis.
take to change the bylaws?
I think just a vote. I'm not sure if they go to the board as well. But
And I'm not sure that's really where we should go.
yeah, I mean, this means every fall, I think, doing a check-in to reasonably say, let's do December, January, and February at 10 o'clock, and then staff notices that. There's no
Yeah,
requirement
let's just
for.
do that.
I think the
That's
the
fine.
Then we
bylaws
don't
are
have to
flexible
bring it
enough
up
right
every
now. If it
year.
says
Yeah.
9 a.m. unless otherwise
Because November is
noticed.
just as dark as February. So, I'm fine with it, but let's just do it meeting by meeting.
Yeah.
And that's what you're saying too, Diane?
No, I'm saying I'd like to have it straight out so that we get busy and we get confused and we get rushed. I would, from my point of view, because I'm probably one of the ones most impacted, I would rather have it be December, January, and February, so everybody knows there's not anything going out that isn't forgotten. That would be my preference.
So are you asking for a change in the bylaws then?
Yes, I am.
Deputy County Counsel, what I could also offer, we'll agendize a bylaw discussion if desired, but we could also have staff every October agendize this item so people, because that was one issue I think would be kind of cleaner in the future as well, is putting this on the agenda so people know we're considering this for the upcoming year, for this next fall. So staff could have that as part of an agenda in October.
Changing the bylaws you're talking
Well,
about?
just saying at a minimum in October of every year, we would have a discussion about changing the meeting schedule for certain months, or we could certainly agendize bylaw changes next year, if that's desired. For the moment, I think direction to staff to do for this next 2 years is sufficient to do it for January
Next
and
2
February.
months.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Going forward, if we want to have a larger discussion, please give us direction, and we'll bring that a bylaw discussion in the future. Or it could be, instead of being put on the commissioners to mention it at a meeting, staff could make it part of their schedule items for every October meeting, per se, to bring this up, review it with the commission, and approve that time change.
I'm just at the point where if we're all not going to be on this commission forever, and there may be, there may be somebody that is on the coast that wants the meeting started at 9 o'clock, and then they have to change the bylaws again. So I would rather see, as County Council has said, we just consider this next October. Go ahead and change the meetings for December or for January and February this year. And then in October, we bring this matter back up again and decide at that point. Because like I said, as we all know, December 21st is the shortest day of the year, so November's just as short and dark
Yeah, I
as
agree.
January. So
The roads aren't quite as icy or slick.
Yeah,
It's not as cold
it's a
then,
little
but-
different.
it's not as cold.
Yeah.
Right.
I would personally
Yeah.
mark my calendar to ensure that that happens in
lives in
October.
Yeah,
I
right.
understand the
Yes.
desire to start at 10 a.m.
Right, so that's fine with me. I don't need to make it complicated by any means. It's just, safety request.
And I do know that Molly had addressed this the
Yeah.
last few years as
Right.
well, so.
So I think we have clear direction then. We will go
Yeah.
ahead and make sure that the meeting in January, so the next meeting on January 16th will start at 10 a.m. And same with the 2 meetings in February if we have items for
Thank
those
you.
meetings.
Sure.
Thank you
you.
so much.
Any other matters from commission? Then we're down to approval of minutes, and I submitted a couple of very, very minor wordsmithing. You got those, Jim? Okay.
I move the minutes as amended.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Merry
Thank
Christmas,
you.
everyone.
Hey,
Happy New
happy
Year.
holidays, everybody.
I wrote on